Good evening, everyone. This is Suzanne Shirley, Senior Ruby Ambassador with Plexus, and we are here tonight. I had the wrong chapter up. I was already into chapter 11. So we are in chapter 10 of the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, and chapter 10 is the law of the rubber band. And basically the law of the rubber band is the tension between you and where you want to go in your goal. Whatever it is, the destination that you want to arrive at, what is the tension between you and that goal, that destination? Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. Growth stops when you lose that tension. You're not going to grow. Only a mediocre person is always at his best. It's a quote by W. Somerset Maugham, if I said that right. Maugham. I hope I didn't say, I don't know how if I'm saying these people's names right. I think that's a silent G-H. Okay. He describes his own lifestyle, John Maxwell does, as being unhealthy. He then has a heart attack. Then he decides to change his lifestyle, starts walking, swimming, and then finally he does Pilates, which is a series of exercise that work the muscles of the body and the core. It strengthens the core of the body. And he discovered that he needed to grow in flexibility. Some people are not flexible at all physically, and the only way to become flexible is to, number one, become active, and number two, involve a lot of stretching. You have to become active and involve some stretching. And he talks about how now he's in the best shape he's been in 30 years, 35 years, and stretching is vitally important to growth. We've got to learn how to stretch. We've got to learn how to stretch if we want to grow. So he went through a series of stretches in his own life and his own journey, and he describes them, and I'm going to do them briefly. Still getting over a sinus thing. You're going to hear me cough every now and then. I'm sorry. God's gift to us is our potential. Our gift to God is developing it. How do we do that? By getting out of our comfort zone. We've got to get out of that comfort zone by continually stretching, not only physically, but also mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Life begins at the end of our comfort zone, and we go there by doing the stretching. So if we get out of our comfort zone, we do so by stretching. That's the process that gets us out of the comfort zone. So he had some progress by some different experiences that he experienced some stretching. What were they? Number one, his first pastorate. He learned a lot of leadership lessons there. He learned how to love people more. That's what happened. Then he learned that he must focus on teaching leadership. It wasn't looked at highly upon. He was not favored when he decided that he decided that he needed to start teaching leadership. Even though pastors are expected to lead every single day, none of them were formally trained in leadership. So he was criticized for it. But what happened as a result is that he was able to help so many other pastors. He was able to discover the message that he believes he was born to teach. That's a result of his stretching and learning that he needed to start teaching leadership to pastors, which again, remember, he was criticized for it. Next thing he did was he learned how to communicate internationally. What happened is he was in Japan. It was very difficult for him. He was not connecting well with his audience. So he saw that as an opportunity to stretch and grow and maybe someday make a greater impact internationally. What happened was almost a decade of him learning how to connect with people in other cultures while working with a translator. That's what happened as a result of him deciding to stretch internationally and help people outside of the American culture. or the English-speaking culture, should I say. And it made it possible for his organization, Equip, EQUIP, to be formed. Without that, without the cross-cultural leadership and expansion, he would have never been able to form his organization. So when he crossed over to the new audience, again, another stretch situation, he started meeting with his publisher. He learned that his books were being purchased more and more throughout the secular retailers than religious ones. I'm sure that bothered him a lot actually. But what happened as a result is that he had the opportunity to reach so many more people that he otherwise would not. Think about this. If you're not a Christian, but you pick up a John Maxwell book because you know that he is the leader of leaders, you're going to read that book just because of his face and his name is on the cover. And in the book, he talks about loving others and putting them first. And he talks about Christ, and he talks about his belief in God. And he doesn't mince words, but he also doesn't try to proselytize you. But it has a huge impact. So look at the audience that he's reaching with the gospel, for example. I think that's pretty profound. And then finally, he focused on building a legacy, and that stretched him even more. He turned 60. He was thinking, hey, I'm just going to slow down. I'm getting towards retirement age. He was approached to start a coaching company at the age of 60. Had the chance to regain the control of the training and the development materials that he had created over the previous decade. So he would control the publishing of all of it. Why not do that, right? What happened as a result was he entered another season of sowing, and instead of just harvesting, he said that it allowed him to help so many more people than he would have if he had just slowed down and started the retirement process. So that's John Maxwell's series of stretches that took him over the course of his lifetime in his career, so that he could accomplish his full potential and help the masses and develop himself to the highest potential, which is incredible if you ask me. There are so many benefits of tension, and he points out 7 of them. 7 observations about tension, or if we call it stretching. Rubber bands. Think about a rubber band. Useful only when stretched. Rubber bands. That can also be said of us as people, as human beings. We only have any potential to be used when we are stretched. Otherwise, we're not useful. Number 1, few people want to even do it. Few people want to even attempt it. They don't want to. He talks about when he was in college, he had some jobs at a local meatpacking plant. He had a job at a meatpacking plant. I'm trying to skip so I don't have to read so much and go over so many things. And there was a guy named Pence, and he was there for many years, and took him aside, took John Maxwell, the young John Maxwell, aside and said, you ask too many questions. The less you know, the less you have to do. So don't ask so many questions and you won't have to do so much work. Wow. So most people, and that guy Pence is obviously one of them, most people only use a small fraction of their abilities, and they rarely strive to reach their full potential. They just don't get there. They're not willing to do it. There's no tension to grow in their lives. They have little desire to stretch. There's no tension to grow in their lives. They're sadly a third of all high school graduates. These are some pretty astounding statistics. A third of all high school graduates never read another book for the rest of their lives. 42% of college graduates similarly never read a book after college. That's a tragedy. Publisher David Godine claims that only 32% of the United States population has ever been into a bookstore. That's hard to even fathom for thinking individuals. I happen to be a thinking individual. I have to admit, I enjoy being a thinking individual. I enjoy being what I call myself. I know that sounds crazy, but I call myself an intellectual because I'm interested in learning things. I'm interested in mastering a concept, acquiring a new skill, and knowing and gaining knowledge. I think that's the sheer definition of an intellectual, someone who strives to learn and loves to learn and seeks to learn and never stops. I don't know if people are aware of the gap. This is John Maxwell saying this. I don't know if people are aware of the gap between where they are and where they could be, but relatively few seem to be reading books to try to close that gap. So guess what? We need to be reading books constantly. We need to be expanding our knowledge, our skill base. And by reading books, we're reading things that people who've done this before and succeeded at it. Why wouldn't we read books? We need to be reading books and personally growing ourselves. Too many people are willing to settle for an average life. What's average? What is it? This is written by Edmond Gaudet. I think that's French. Average is what failures claim to be when their family and their friends ask them why they are not successful. Average is the top of the bottom. The cream of the crap, maybe. That was from me. The best of the worst. The bottom of the top. The worst of the best. Which of those are you? I don't want to be any of them. Average means being run-of-the-mill, mediocre, insignificant. Also ran, which is a non-entity. Being average is a lazy person's cop-out. It's lacking the guts to take a stand in life. It's living by default. Being average is to take up space for no purpose whatsoever. Just to take a trip through life, but never pay the fare. No interest for God's investment in you whatsoever. Or his potential that he's made in you. Being average is to pass one's life away with time rather than to pass one's time away with life. Wow, what an interesting perspective. It's to kill time rather than to work it to death. To be average is to be forgotten once you pass from this life. The successful are remembered for their contributions. The failures are remembered because they tried, at least they tried. But the average, the silent majority, are just forgotten. Do you want to just be forgotten? No. That won't do. To be average is to commit the greatest crime that one can against oneself, humanity, and one's God. The saddest epitaph is this: here lies Mr. and Mrs. Average. Here lies the remains of what might have been, except for their belief that they were only average. So, John can't stand the idea of settling for average. Can you? I certainly can't. I won't. And I'll explain it later when we talk in our discussion after the recording. I have quite a few things I want to talk about, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Nobody admires average. Nobody does. The best organizations don't pay for average. They want the best. Mediocrity is not worth even shooting for. Why even mess with it? So we must be aware of the gap that stands between us and our potential, and let the tension of that gap motivate us to keep striving to become better. We have to identify what it's going to take to stretch us and to get us out of that comfort zone. I'm going to talk about mine later. I've been in a comfort zone for a year, and it's like a light has just gone off in my soul, not just in my mind, but in my soul. because of some groups that I've been put in recently, some chats that I've had with some jewels. And it has been I'm trying to not become emotional. It's been enlightening to see where I have not been this year and what I have not done and what I could have done but didn't do. And it makes me sad right now. I'm sad, but I think that the emotion that you're seeing also comes from anger at myself. I'm very angry with myself for the mindset I think that I've had, but I've not even realized that I've had that mindset until very recently. I hadn't even identified that mindset. And it's time that I identify it, because things will not change unless I change. Nothing will change unless I change. So I'm talking in generalities here, but I'm telling you, if you want to become something amazing and if you want to achieve the greatest goals that you've ever had, you are going to have to identify the thing that's keeping you back, that's holding you back. And you're going to have to identify the thing that's going to make you stretch, the activity or the situation or whatever it is that's going to make you stretch out of that place. And then you have to start being willing to do those things. And if you're not, you will stay right where you're at. And I'm talking about myself. It's not been a fun last few days, but I am excited as a result. I'm very excited because I know for a fact that when I start to do the things that I have always sort of known that I should be doing, but I haven't done, I know that I can do them as well. I know I'm perfectly humanly capable of it. And there's nothing really stopping me but me. And I am now getting out of my own way. So, number 2, the second observation of stretching, settling for the status quo ultimately leads to a huge dissatisfaction. When you're sitting in something that you're not satisfied with, you're going to sit there and be so unhappy and dissatisfied. Most people are naturally tempted to just settle into a comfort zone where they choose comfort over their potential. They fall into this familiar pattern of habits and they just do the same thing over and over again. That was me in the classroom. That was me teaching. Something in the back of my mind told me maybe some kids I'm reaching. Some kids appreciate my presence. Some kids actually do want to learn what I'm teaching. Some kids actually do listen to me when I speak about whatever it is that I'm talking about. But most of the time I felt that I was accomplishing virtually nothing. And I was unhappy with that. So these people are at the same time getting the same results. So they're staying in the same habit thing and they're getting the same results. It's called being in your comfort zone. It really feels good, but it leads to mediocrity and it also leads to, therefore, dissatisfaction. So you've got to realize that you're only going to reach your potential if you have the courage to push yourself outside your comfort zone and break out of a mindset of mediocrity. You must be willing to leave behind what feels familiar, safe, and secure. You must give up excuses and push forward. You must be willing to face the tension that comes from stretching towards your potential. The third observation is stretching always starts from the inside. As I just described to you, I had an epiphany. I had a realization. I had a mental focus change and a paradigm shift. It happened on the inside of me. It starts there. And that's how the outside changes. You got to change from the inside. This is a huge point here, guys. Most people have a dream, but who's actually chasing it? Very few. Most people have dreams, but very few are chasing their dreams. Very, very few. Very few. Gallup polls indicate that most people do not even like their current jobs. Most Americans want to lose weight, but they don't make any effort to do it. Most people want to write a book. How many people are doing that? Instead of wishing, wanting, and waiting, people need to search inside themselves for the reasons to start. They need to get in, dig deep. So it's wise to remember that our situation in life is mainly due to the choices that we make and the actions that we do or fail to take. Our life is a result of the actions, the choices and the actions that we take. The choices we make and the actions we take. So you have two options. Okay? You can choose to accept it, defend it, cover it up, and explain it away. Or you can choose to change it, grow from it, and forge a new path. I mean, why did we start this thing in the first place? Why did we even click Join Plexus? We want to improve our lives? Do we get to a certain point and just sit there and be happy where we're at and just say, okay, well, life is good. I'm okay. This is better than it was before. At least that's better than it was before. Or do we look at this thing that we joined that has no ceiling and we really do use it as the vehicle it was intended to be, to take us from where we are to where we want to go? We have to decide. Are we going to sit and be comfortable? Are we going to take this vehicle and go all the way with it? So where do you find the internal impetus for stretching? Measure what you're doing against what you're capable of. Measure yourself against yourself, not anyone else. People who care about you and believe in you. Measure yourself. Go talk to some people. Go talk to some people that really care about you and believe in you. And find out, ask them what they think you're capable of. Find a mentor who can help you see yourself for who you could be. That is another thing that has changed me. Oh, I get so upset with myself. I'm trying to hold in the emotions. I teach you guys every week to go and find mentors. Do I have a mentor? I hate to say this, but no, I didn't ever have one. I'm not talking about my sponsor and my upline. I'm talking about mentors, real mentors. People who have a skill that you don't have. People who have done something you haven't done. People who have had more success than you. Go find them. Don't be afraid to ask for their help. I've been afraid to ask for people's help. These are people that are not in our team, not even in our upline. I have a Zoom scheduled on Thursday with one of them. I had an hour of voice chats with another one this morning. I was almost in tears trying to hold myself together, realizing what I have not done for a whole year. It's been very upsetting. I'm only upset with myself. But it's taken me an entire year of this whatever mindset. I obviously had to go through it. It's taken me I'm glad at least that I've come to this realization. I'd rather come to the realization now than to never realize what I have been doing wrong. So I keep going back to myself. I feel like if you can learn from my mistake, then, at least you can learn. Find a mentor. Find a mentor who can help you see yourself for who you could be. Help them. Let them identify something in you that you're not doing that you could be doing. Use that image then to inspire you to start stretching. And that's exactly what I've been doing. Okay, number 4, if I keep on pausing, I'm never going to get through this. We're going to get through this. 4, stretching requires change. You got to change yourself. How do you embrace change and kick yourself out of your comfort zone? Stop looking back over your shoulder. Don't focus on the past. You can't do anything about it. Just take a look at now. All you can do is anything about right now. Second thing you do is develop your reach muscle. You got to reach out and reach for something that's just outside of your reach. If you want to grow and change, you've got to take risks and reach. You got to start reaching for it. Innovation and progress are initiated by people who push for the change. You got to push for the change. The word entrepreneur has come to mean gambler to a lot of people. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not a gambler, but I do take risks. You have to. Risk has its advantages. When you take risks, you learn more and faster than the people who don't take risks. You're going to learn more and faster. The depth and range of experience is often greater, and people learn how to solve problems. And it helps people to grow. All of those things help you to grow. Okay. Number 5, stretching sets you apart from other people. There's so many other people that won't do it. So guess what? You're going to be in an elite league. America seems to be increasingly satisfied with mediocrity. It's like a personal concession to do less than your best. I saw that in the classroom every single day. Every single day, the majority of my students were okay with whatever it took to just get by. And I mean the majority. I mean like 95% or more. And it just literally tore me up inside. I hated it. These kids would never work their hardest and do their best at anything. They just did whatever it took to meet whatever minimum standard. It was so difficult to watch that. Okay. I'm trying to skip some stuff here. The way to get ahead is to over-deliver. To get an A+ in business, you have to expand your organization's expectations of you and then exceed them. And you have to fully answer every question the teacher asks, plus a slew of questions he or she didn't even think of. That's what the student in the classroom needs to be doing. Not only just answer every question that the teacher asks, ask a slew of questions that the teacher didn't even think of. The goal, in other words, should be to make your bosses smarter, your teams more effective, your whole company more competitive because of your energy, creativity, and insight. Improving yourself is the best way to help your team. Successful people set themselves apart because they initiate the improvement that others need. When you get better, those around you just benefit by natural. It just happens naturally. Excellence has the potential to spread in the same way that mediocrity does. Okay? Number 6, stretching can become a lifestyle. It can become a habit, something you do every single day. When you stop your stretching, you stop living. You basically stop living. James Terry White observed, nature has everywhere written her protest against idleness. Everything which ceases to struggle, which remains inactive, rapidly deteriorates. If you're not going upstream, you're going downstream. You've got to get rid of the idea that you're just coasting along. If you're not going up, you're not just coasting. You're going backwards. You're backsliding. You're going down. Trust me. I'm an example of that. Take a look at my personal business lately. You can just look to me as the example of that. It's the struggle toward the ideal, the constant effort to get higher and further, which develops manhood and character. Rabbi Nachman of Wroclaw said, if you won't be better tomorrow than you were today, then what do you even need tomorrow for? And finally, do not let success derail you. When you get to a certain, here we go, bam, bam, thank you, ma'am, preaching to self, Do not let success derail you. When you get to a certain level of success, it's very enticing to become comfortable. Comfortable. So much so that you think you've done what you're supposed to do. What else do you need to do? You've achieved some success. Time to sit back. Notice that nobody has ever made a significant impact after they won a Nobel Prize. Have you ever noticed that? People get to the pinnacle of their career and their success. They win a Nobel Prize. What do they do after that? It's kind of fascinating if you ask me. Number 7, stretching gives you a shot at significance. So now your life has meaning. Significance is the thing we should be striving for, not success, but significance, meaning, making our mark on the planet. Cross over this gap that you found and that you've identified, and you find yourself on the great side. Okay, you find yourself on the great side. That's the land of the possible. It's where people achieve the extraordinary. It's where you develop an empire. It's where you hit the pinnacle of your potential. You've got to get over that gap. You've got to cross over the gap. We stop asking ourselves what we are and we start asking ourselves what we can become. That's what we need to be doing. Significance is what we can become, not what we already are. We may appreciate what we did yesterday, but we do not put it on a pedestal. Stop putting it on a pedestal. It looks really small in comparison to the possibilities of the future. Look forward with energy. And then finally, I'm to the end, basically right here. I just said enough. Stretch till you die. It says stretch till the end. You got to stretch till you die. You can't give up ever. No matter what happens, what accomplishments or successes, never stop wanting and seeking out ways to grow, improve, and stretch yourself. And with that, I am done. I'm going to say, really, I'm happy that you all joined me. I'm glad that you watch our videos. I'm going to now stop the recording so that we can have a discussion. There are some questions on page 172. I strongly encourage you to read through those. Ask yourself those questions to apply the law of the rubber band in your life. Thank you for joining us. Here we go.